The Red Sox announced their opening day starter and also announced some positive injury updates.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with my co-host, NESN's Lord Willand. I'm still recording here from my hotel room in Atlanta. I'm excited to go home and be back in my regular setup, but it's been nice to see the Red Sox back in the room. Corey Kluber back on the mound, shoving. We're going to speak more about that, but we now know officially that Kluber will be the opening day starter for the Red Sox.
Yeah, I think that it's not a surprise since Cora talked about it earlier this week, but also it's the safest bet, I guess, knowing who else is in the rotation and not wanting to put that pressure on Chris Sale, which Cora said. And what I found really interesting is that Cora said he knew Corey Kluber was going to be the opening day starter months ago. And I think that kind of goes to show that he has a lot of confidence in Kluber and he knows what he wants to do to start this season to try to come out strong and give the players like Chris Sale. Not that Chris Sale needs, not that his confidence is going to be shattered by any means, but for someone who hasn't pitched or stayed healthy in a very long time to kind of take that added pressure off Sale. And yeah, like put it on Kluber, who's only had 5 other opening day starts, but he is a veteran of this league. He showed up on Wednesday. He had a really strong spring training start, and he's looked fine throughout spring training. So I just think when you look at the rest of the people in the rotation and who's up to be in that starting rotation, Corey Kluber makes the most sense.
Really think about it. I mean, Kluber was signed in December, and as you mentioned, was told in January that he'd be taking the ball on opening day. So it's surprising that even before spring training officially started, even before pitchers and catchers reported, the front office and Alex Cora ultimately would be the best option to take the ball on the first game of the season. And, I agree with you. He's somebody as well who has made 5 other opening day starts. And then, the last time he took the bump on opening day was 2019 with the past Indians, now the Guardians, and pitched 7 innings, allowing 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 strikeouts. And Kluber said that he's never had a manager tell him that he's taken the ball day one this early in a campaign with the team.
Yeah, it's like, welcome to the team. You're going to be our opening day starter. Like before you even meet anyone, before you get acclimated with all the guys and get down to spring training, maybe that puts a lot of pressure on Kluber, but maybe it just kind of gives him extra motivation too, to really show up in spring training and just put together solid starts. And we saw 5 strong innings from him on Wednesday. And what are we at, March 15th? So he'll probably get another start before opening day. Maybe let him go a little bit longer just to see what you have from him and then rest him to March 30th. So I love that Alex Cora was like, sign this guy and we're going to make him opening day starter. And that's kind of ballsy to do that so soon because he could have suffered injuries. He could have, maybe he didn't want that honor. I don't think that would be the case, but that's, kind of putting your eggs all in one basket so soon. But I also think it speaks to the confidence that Cora has in Kluber.
I would be curious to know if that did ultimately happen where Kluber got an injury and wasn't able to be the opening day starter. If Chris Sale still wouldn't be getting the ball on opening day, because one component, I agree with you a lot that I think not putting that pressure on him to be that number one starter right away, and also have that pressure of being the opening day starter on game one. But it's also his birthday that day. And so, I understand, him wanting him to enjoy opening day once again, be back with his team for the first time in, 3 some odd years It's interesting to sort of see that this is the way, at least starting the season, the rotation is going to stack up at least.
Yeah, I think that we'll see Kluber and then Sale and then 3, 4, 5, pick your fighter in those spots. But I think that, I like that it's Kluber on opening day. And I think I said in an episode that anything can happen and maybe Corey Kluber will be named opening day starter. Like completely, like not sarcastic, but I wasn't serious about it. And I'll have to go back and find it because I'm pretty sure I said him, but I think like I mentioned, it speaks to the confidence that Cora has. And it's not that he doesn't have confidence in Chris Sale. It's just that he wants him to be able to enjoy opening day as a baseball player, not have that pressure on him. And he can be there for game 2. Maybe you get the nerves off of you after game 1, just kind of seeing the Fenway crowd back in action and getting the Fenway feel kind of back and being around your teammates and just kind of getting the feel of being back on a baseball team and staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's probably best to go game 2 with Chris Sale. And if Corey Kluber can have a dominant opening day, and that maybe that sets Chris Sale up to just, kind of follow his lead, and maybe it just kind of sets the tone, not for the season, but for the first opening homestand and for the first few games.
And you saw a lot of people on Twitter be a little bit upset over this announcement, a little
Classic
bit surprised,
Twitter.
and something that I took from speaking with Ian Brown and Alex Spear is the day of opening day, game 1, is a little bit overblown. They sort of mentioned, alluding to sort of guys not being ready in terms of injuries for opening day. Obviously, that's when you want guys to be ready to start the season off strong, to get momentum going. But hey, it's really just a regular game. Even though it's the first one of the season, it's not going to be the end of the world if it's Corey Kluber, Chris Sale, Nick Pivetta, or even one of the minor leaguers. You know what I mean? And so maybe if they allow 5 to 8 runs, that what I'm saying is that it's not something to overreact about. And I think as well, it's going to be a great way for Kluber to start the season off on the right note, really get a sense of what he spoke about when he first signed with Boston, of the atmosphere that he loved. And I feel like as well, I'm just curious to see how not only the start that we saw on Wednesday, but also potentially one more start that he'll make for the rest of spring training will ultimately set him up to succeed on game 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long season. Game 1 of 162, we can't put too much stock into it no matter what happens, even if it's a great start, if it's a poor start, if it's a so-so start. It's a very, very long season, and it's going to be really exciting. And I think, we've talked about the intrigue around this team and the potential this team has to, be a competitive ball club. And it starts in game 1. You want to set that tone. You want to kind of start on a high note. And sometimes losses can be, there's no moral victories, but sometimes, you look at games and you're like, okay, this was winnable. Here's where we went wrong. And just kind of, if you do lose, correct the mistakes right away. Get back in looking at film, going through the batting cage or your warm up, whatever it may be. But I think that, coming out, setting that tone early and just kind of exuding the confidence and that charisma and the vibes that we've seen all spring training, make sure that all transfers into opening day on March 30th.
And, when Kluber spoke about, getting that nod for opening day, he said, it's definitely an honor. And he said, the biggest thing for me is trying to get as much time as possible to prepare. And, he was really able to do that, getting stretched out a little bit more on his Wednesday's start, pitching 5 innings, allowing 4 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, in 6 strikeouts, 2 pitches. And, similar to what we talked about with Nick Pivetta in the last episode, this was probably his best start that we've seen from Kluber so far this spring. And he mentioned, I had a pretty good mix of commanding different pitches and able to throw most of my pitches for strikes. And, that's what you want, especially, when you have maybe a shorter window than most of the other pitchers in the rotation to prepare and build up prior to the regular season beginning.
I think him mixing his pitches and really just kind of having that command over them was the most encouraging thing that I saw from his start. I didn't get to watch all of it, but Twitter exists, and thank God for Twitter some days, but I was able to see that he looked very comfortable on the mound. And I love that we've seen 2 consecutive starts from 2 pitchers who hopefully will have a big role in this rotation. And this is kind of what happened in spring training with pitchers, right? They kind of start off a little rusty, and as the spring training goes on and as they get more starts and kind of get their routine going, they start to perform better. But to have back-to-back starts like this, especially from your opening day starter, and then Nick Pivetta, who was incredibly durable for you last year, I think is very encouraging. Hopefully this continues. We see this next week and then the week after in regular season games.
Right. I'm loving this good news during this week so far, especially with, the injuries, happening left and right throughout the rotation. It's nice to get some, good news regarding, one of the most important units of an overall depth chart. And, another guy made his first appearance in Garrett, Whitlock. He came out of the bullpen. Obviously, some people think that should be his regular role during the regular season, but he's preparing to be built back up in the rotation as a starter, and looked very good on the mound over 2 innings. Ended up ultimately walking one person, allowing striking out 3, and it was nice to see him, starting to have some great performances early on in the spring, and hopefully it'll be the jump start of an ultimate good full first season as a starter.
Listen, we know how I feel about where Whitlock should be in this on this team. We know that I want his role to be in the bullpen, and it showed again on Wednesday. I think that, and yes, you have to be careful with him because he did recover a bit slower from his surgery, and you don't want to just throw him to the wolves if he's still not 100%. But when he does well out of the bullpen, I wonder if Alex Cora is questioning, maybe we should keep him there. And maybe we should just stick with, put Tanner Houck in there, or maybe Brayan Bello, but Brayan Bello with his forearm tightness and still recovering from that. It's just, and great. It's great they have this depth, and it's great they have these options. But when you see Whitlock, and he did very well on Wednesday, it just makes you think. I know it's spring training. I know it's only 2 innings. I know it was only his first appearance this spring. Why not just keep him there if it's working?
Yeah. I agree, and I'm curious to see how it ultimately works out for him. If his off-season program, his hip surgery, if it was enough to ultimately build him up to have a full healthy season, and also how many innings we're going to get from him. I think that's the ultimate biggest question for this rotation. Not only with Whitlock going into his first full season as a starter, you could also say Sale, Kluber, Paxton, Bello as well, and even for some of those guys to not only be able to stay healthy, but also to be able to pitch every 5th day and be able to have productive innings, and also longer starts. We saw how obviously when Tanner Houck was in the rotation, only going 4 to 5 innings, like that's not going to have a much better bullpen this year compared to last year. But at the same time, you don't want to wear down that pen. But we're going to speak more about some of the offensive output that we saw on Wednesday, as well as Alex Cora had some more comments regarding the leadoff spot going into the season. But before we do that, take a second to talk to you about FanDuel. So the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. And now that betting is legal in Massachusetts, Tristan Cassis is Rookie of the Year, Yoshida is Rookie of the Year, Red Sox win the World Series. You can go big with FanDuel. Plus, they even let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And another guy, him continuing to not only improve going into the season, but also starting to get his stroke in his production at the plate back in action, is Rob Refsnyder, going 0 for 21 prior to Wednesday's game. But in the last 2 games, hit a home run on Wednesday, and then on Tuesday, and then a 3-run double on Thursday. I'm getting my days mixed up, but he's back in action, back being productive at the plate. So it was nice to see him, be back and hitting well.
It is. And I think, at the end of the day, this is kind of who Rob Refsnyder is. He is streaky. He's probably not going to constantly be a staple in your lineup, but there are going to be times where he comes through, and there's going to be times he goes on these little hot streaks. And I'm sure it feels great for him to kind of get that monkey off of his back and to break that slump, because when you're 0 for whatever, that's constantly on your mind, and you're only one swing away from breaking that slump. But the more that, the more the slump continues, it's like, when will this one swing come? And it's come now. It's come, and Rob Refsnyder has looked really good the last 2 games. And it's really nice to see. Am I expecting this, to mean he's going to go on some heater now? No, probably not. But it's nice to see when you have someone like him, and you're like, there were so many times last season that he provided the highlight and the fun around this team. So that's really, really nice to see that he can kind of get out of that slump. And like I said, just get that monkey off his back. And maybe that will put him in a better spot to be mentally better at the plate and not have that hanging over your head that I'm 0 for 21, or I haven't had a hit all spring. And now it's here. And I like the guy. Like I said, he was fun at times last year. And I'm certainly not expecting him to be, the power in the Red Sox lineup, but I would like somebody there who can be reliable in a pinch hitting situation, a depth situation, or just, a rest situation at that.
And, another component to point out as well is, it wasn't just like a little dinky single to get his first hit of the season.
Right.
It was in big spots, a home run and that 3-run double where he was able to come up clutch, when the team needed it most. So, hopefully he's able to continue that throughout the rest of this spring and have that momentum going into the regular season, and ultimately can do that plenty more times for the Red Sox during 2023. And then another guy who has had a little bit of some struggles at the plate so far is newcomer Adam Duvall. Hit his second home run on Wednesday, which was really nice to see. And he's somebody, especially when Boston signed him, who could be looked at as a power surge in this Red Sox lineup.
Yeah, and this is somebody who, when I see slumping in spring training, I'm like, okay, this needs to get broken, because if you are going to be kind of a mainstay in this lineup, you need to do something. And I know it's spring training, but this is where you kind of work out those kinks. So that was really nice to see that he's starting to really find his swing and find his form, and just kind of come into this hitter that he's expected to be. No, he wasn't signed to be this big power bat, but he was signed to bring a little bit more power to this lineup. And to see it the last 2 games is very encouraging, because I was like, oh God, here we go. Like, is this going to be the Boo Birds are going to be out at Fenway very quick for this guy? But it's spring training. And we've said it 100 times that these games don't count, but you want to see everybody produce, and you want to see everybody contribute, no matter, even if these games don't matter at the end of the day. But finally seeing him kind of get into the hit column and join the hit club that the Red Sox have been having this spring training was very, very encouraging.
And then, another guy who is going to be using these up at bats, his current position on the team, is Bobby Dalbec. Ended up, not only getting a triple in Wednesday's game, but also was able to draw a walk. It's nice to see him taking advantage of these opportunities to play more often throughout this spring. And hopefully, I'm rooting for the guy. Hopefully, he's up these good games and these good performances, and maybe it could help him sneak up in the 26-man roster.
Anything is possible. It's so hard to find where he fits on the 26-man roster, because he's been replaced, and we know that he is expendable, and we know that he's replaceable. They can send him to Worcester, and I'm rooting for him too. I obviously do not want this guy to fail at all. And I hope that he can really kind of find his groove as a player and find his place, whether it's with the Red Sox or another Major League Baseball team. But, I love that he's taking advantage of the opportunity in front of him. I think that's very, very important. And we've talked about this before, but he seems to thrive and just do better when there's kind of competition around him. When Kyle Schwarber was brought in, all of a sudden we saw this brand new Bobby Dalbec at the plate. And I was hoping that was going to be the case last year, but it was just a miserable season for Dalbec, and maybe it's a one-off. But this is the time that he can try to really prove himself, earn a spot on that roster, and make it difficult for Cora to be like, sorry, bud, you're going to go start in Worcester this year.
And, Cora has some tough decisions going into the season, not only in the 26-man roster, but what is the lineup going to look like? And the leadoff spot, interestingly enough, has been a ginormous debate throughout off season, and there's been a lot of overanalyzation, as there mostly is in spring training, of where guys are in the lineup each game, and could that correlate to what we could see going into the season. And Cora suggested, we spoke about this before, there'll be a mixed match of the leadoff spot, but one name that he didn't bring up prior was Tristan Casas. And, he mentioned prior, we spoke about this, Arroyo, Ref Schneider, and Kike Hernandez, who we've seen in the past be in that leadoff spot. But, Casas has been somebody that, a lot of fans have been rallying around to be in that leadoff spot. And, yesterday it sort of correlates to what we talked about with the patience. But in my opinion, I think it's a lot of pressure to put on a guy's shoulders, especially going into his first rookie season. And he doesn't even have, 100 up at bats under his belt in the majors. And so I think that's one thing that you got to give him a little bit more experience before you just throw him into the. That's what happened with Jarren Duran last season when he had the opportunity to be in leadoff. Worked out for a few games, but, then ended up not working out well at all.
Listen, you started talking about the leadoff hitter and how Cora's going to mix and match. My ring light just absolutely just decided to shut down. I hope that's not foreshadowing anything that's going to happen with that leadoff position. But I'm glad that he's not just sticking to one person for 160 games or 100 games. I like that he's going to mix and match and kind of find that perfect person. Because at first we thought it was going to be Yoshida, and we were like, okay, he's never played Major League Baseball before, but let's give it a shot. But I've liked what I've seen from Casas, especially not just in that leadoff spot, but all spring. We discussed his patience, that the way he can just kind of see pitches and just approach every at bat just very, very methodically. So I think he'd be a perfect, not perfect. That's not going to jump the gun there, but I think he'd be a very strong leadoff hitter. And they do have options. I mean, you said that Cora's mentioned a few other people, and they all have had leadoff experience, but I just feel like for a leadoff hitter, it's not one of those positions in the lineup or parts of the lineup that you can just kind of plug and play. You really have to find who works there and who doesn't. Because your leadoff hitter can really, really set the tone for your lineup, and you're depending on him to get on base.
And, I remember a few years ago when they relied on Benny and Xander Bogaerts to be that leadoff spot. It sort of hurt them offensively and got them a little bit into a rut. And you could point the same thing to Duran last year. And so you don't want to do that to a rookie, especially. I'm curious to see how ultimately everything does stack up. We do know for the most part that, Devers will be slotted in that 2 spot. And then Cora also mentioned Yoshida, who a lot of people have been questioning where he'll really fit in this Red Sox lineup at 3, 4, and 5 spots. And, that's one thing that, a lot of the Japanese they were surprised about the debate of, Yoshida leading off, because that 3, 4, 5 is exactly where he sort of was throughout his career in Japan.
And I think when you're dealing with somebody like Yoshida, who does not have American baseball experience, and you want to put him where he's comfortable or where he was comfortable with while he was playing in Japan. And we've seen a lot from him. We've seen, some from him throughout spring training before he left for the WBC, that he was, he did struggle with certain pitches, but he was hitting well out of those spots in the lineup. And maybe there's, putting him in that position where there's not as much pressure. You just kind of focus on getting on base and, base running whenever you can move on the base path. But I like that he's not going to be the leadoff hitter. At least they're not going to put him there right away. I think that the 3, 4, 5 spot, that part of the lineup is going to be perfect for him.
I think so as well. And I'm also, excited to see the players coming back from the WBC, but how the players that are currently still in the WBC are able to flourish and are able to utilize that to help them continue to prepare for the season. But luckily, we got some injury updates, positive ones going into today. About that, Lauren just wants to talk to you about Ultimate GM.
I absolutely love this game, and I'm super, super jazzed that Ultimate Baseball GM is our sponsor, and they're sponsoring today's episode. They're our new partner here at Locked On Red Sox. It's the mobile game Ultimate Baseball GM. And if you've ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your own professional baseball franchise, then your dream can come true with this game. This game is definitely for you. You should absolutely download it. You manage every strategic aspect of your team. You play through the season, and hopefully you lead your team to glory. So some things you're responsible for is hiring the right coaches and staff, managing team finances. Maybe you can get an accountant if you're not good with numbers. Like I'm terrible with numbers. You scout, you draft the players, which also means you manage some of those difficult personalities. So then you have to decide who's the clubhouse cancer, who's not going to mesh with this specific player, and everything kind of in between. And you also navigate your franchise through free agency, all the ups and downs of a season. So if you're a Red Sox fan, which obviously if you're listening to Locked On Red Sox, you know that there was a ton of ups and downs that they had to navigate last year. And that could be part of your job on Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. Hopefully not, but you never know. This is a challenging game. It's a realistic game, and it's a completely free and playable game offline. You can play on the go as you want, when you want. Ultimate Baseball GM. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Jake, I don't know if you've downloaded it yet, but I am ready for my team to hopefully beat your team. And we have a lot of friendly competition going on in the Locked On Baseball group chat. And honestly, what's a little trash talk among co-hosts, among friends? We're all friends here. And we all, it's like fantasy baseball when you trash talk in there, and you have to get it going. But it's so much fun, and you manage your entire baseball team. You are the GM. We talk about how we're not the ones making those decisions for the Red Sox, but in Ultimate Baseball GM, that is your responsibility. And Locked On Red Sox listeners, you guys get a 100% free boost to your franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure you go check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, or you can scan the barcode if you're watching on the YouTube, the QR code, scan it right there. And you can look it up in the App Store. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today.
Now, I think the biggest thing for Red Sox fans when playing that game, you just got to extend your homegrown talent. We've seen how it's bit the team in the butt.
Yeah, don't do what the Red Sox have done and let your homegrown talent go. Make sure you keep that.
Yep, exactly. And also don't trade your star players and continue to use their last name as a way to explain why you didn't do that. But all jokes aside, happy to see, some positive news, being infused in the Red Sox news stream. Connor Wong could be back in a game next week. That's the first piece of positive news. And the one thing that came to my mind when I read this is, did the backup catcher, debate just heat up even more now? In my mind, I felt like it was a landslide for Alfaro, especially with, not what the coach has been saying of Wong with Alfaro having much more opportunity to show why he deserves this. But now Wong might have the upper edge as well now that, Alfaro's in the WBC still.
I'd like to think that, or not. I don't necessarily think he has the upper edge, but I still think that'd be smart for him to start the season in Worcester. I think that once the hamstring injury came about, that it made it a bit easier for Cora to be like, all right, I can deal with the three catchers. I can start Connor Wong in Worcester, make sure that he's completely healed and completely stretched out from this hamstring injury, and deal with it. Kind of push off the inevitable and just kind of go with the flow. But who knows? I mean, maybe he'll make the impression where Cora's like, oh, okay, like I'm going to decide to bring Reese McGuire and Connor Wong, and he still could carry three catchers on this major league roster. We've said it before that Alex Cora is taking the 26 best players. If Alfaro, McGuire, and Wong are the part of those 26, then that's what Cora is going to do. But I do think it'd be smart to start him in Worcester, get him some extra reps, maybe even some extra rest down there, and just kind of play your cards right as the season goes on.
And, we brought this date up before, March 25th, 9 more days until the Red Sox have to not only make a decision on Jorge Alfaro, also Nico Goodstrom. Those are three players that are on minor league contracts. And on the 25th, if the Sox don't add them to their 40-man roster, they have the ability to, see what other teams are interested in them to ultimately give them a major league opportunity. Very curious to see how Connor Wong's able to fully some of those 9 days, or you might even have 5 days left to really be able to help sway the decision more towards his way if he's coming back in a game next week. But especially with all the positivity that we've been speaking about regarding the rotation, 2 starters ultimately were ducked is injured over the last few weeks, had some positive news coming from them. James Paxton is getting his hamstring tested on Friday, and if it's cleared, he could return to bullpens very shortly thereafter. And Brayan Bello had a 2-inning live BP yesterday, and if he's cleared, he'll get in a game next week. And I don't know if you saw it on Twitter from Alex Spear. His slider's looking really good. He's looking really healthy, and it's nice to see that the Red Sox are taking it slow and steady to get Brayan Bello back fully healthy after their forearm tightness.
That's what you want to see. Slow and steady. Don't rush anyone, and just make sure that whatever injury it is, the forearm tightness, the hamstring, whoever the pitcher is, just make sure you are taking the necessary steps to make sure they are 100%, especially Paxton too, but especially Bello, when you see a bright future for him and you have a lot of hype around him going into this season, and you really want to see what you have in him. You don't want to put him out there when he's even the least bit injured. So you just want to make sure that that's all taken care of. And it's nice to see that he had the live BP, and hopefully Thursday he wakes up feeling really good. The day after is incredibly important, and same with Paxton. I hope everything goes well for him on Friday. And this team, they're getting healthier at the right time, and it's going to be a lot of fun when this team is healthy. Granted, if we don't want to see Paxton get blown up and it's 3 different starts, but it's encouraging to see that, especially somebody like Paxton, who's had his season cut short last year due to injury, and to start the season off, or start the spring training off with an injury. So it's all very, very encouraging. And I think it's all stuff that Red Sox fans should be encouraged about. And just, you don't have to be excited about it, but you can look at this and be like, this is good news. This is trending in the right direction. And that's what the Red Sox need for this year.
Another guy in Justin Turner, who, ended up, getting stitches and everything after getting hit in the face, luckily is also scheduled to take BP on Friday. So, as you mentioned, things are getting healthier and healthier by the day. Nice to see that. And, regarding Paxton, I said this before, when he does come back, pitch a full start, even just 2 starts is not just too much to ask. But it's going to be nice to see, all these players beginning to come back, the vibes continuing to be high, and everybody starting to be able to jive together right before the season begins. But I wanted to bring, I saw a video that the Red Sox put out, I believe it was yesterday, and they had the players predict who will hit the first home run of the Red Sox 2023 season. Kiki Hernandez said Rafael Devers. Justin Turner said Yoshida. Chris Sale said Cassis. And then Houck said Devers. So, Lauren, I'm curious for you, who do you think will hit the first home run for the Red Sox?
So when I make my predictions, I like to think a little more outside the box and not go with the obvious answer. So as much as I want to say Rafael Devers, I'm going to go with Alex Verdugo. I think that he's going to be the one to get this started, and he's going to be the one to hit the first home run. I don't know if I'm going to be right. I'm not good at predictions. I'm actually very terrible at predictions, but I'm going Alex Verdugo.
I'm going to take the similar route. Rafael Devers is the easy answer, a guy who almost hit 40 bombs last year. I'm going to say Adam Duvall.
Ooh, spicy.
He's supposed to be the power bat of the lineup, so hopefully he can start the season off sort of from what we saw, on Wednesday, is able to, continue that home run stroke. But we also, had some other people, Bobby Dalbec, number one fan, he said they don't know the legend Bobby Dalbec, and I said I had to reply. I said he'll probably hit the first home run at Worcester. Hope he proves me wrong though. Then we got K-pop super pet. He said Cassis, and then we got Noah Powell, Arroyo. Maybe a great way to start off a big season for him. And then Scott Sanders agreed with you. He said Verdugo.
Yeah.
No, yes. He's curious to see who that ultimately is, but we want to hear your guys' thoughts, whether you're watching now on YouTube in the comment section or over on Twitter. Let us know, who do you think will be the Red Sox first home run of the 2023 season. But as always, we greatly appreciate everybody tuning into Locked On Red Sox podcast and for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen and check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube. Also, make sure to subscribe to locked on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, because we're going to be posting 5 days a week to keep you posted about everything that is happening regarding the team leading up to opening day. Also, make sure to follow us over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. And follow myself. It's at Jigigi. And also Lauren. La. 3 laws are ours. But we greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, we hope that you have a great rest of your day. We'll end it how we always end it. Keep the faith and let's go Sox. Peace.